Sweet. Okay, so we are going to do our foundation striping for today. Specifically, how to stripe for the matte wear foundations. And so there's a couple keys and a couple questions that you're going to want to ask yourself. The easiest thing to do if you have a customer that you're meeting for the first time, or you're wondering what foundation to use, or things like that, the most thorough foundation to stripe with is going to be your 3D foundation, because it's going to give you the widest range, and this here needs to be the most precise. Where some of our other foundations are more forgiving, so like the CC creams, there's only 5 or 6 shades for all skin types. So it's a lot easier to be able to, take a look at somebody and be like, they're probably very light or light to medium, and have a good guess as to which one of those two. And then the mineral powder foundations are a lot more forgiving also, where when you're using the matte wear foundation, you need to be more precise. If you give them the wrong foundation, you're going to notice it. So that's what we're going to do today, is to show you how to stripe test to get the most accurate foundation striping for them. And then from there, you can actually use the foundation striping guide on Mary Kay. And so for example, if she happens to be an Ivory C100, you can go to the foundations matching, see that she is an Ivory C100, and then you can follow along and it'll tell you every other foundation formula that we have as to what she would be. So what should be the a very light CC cream, what pressed powder she would be, what concealer she would be, what pressed powder, mineral powder, cream to powder, all of that kind of stuff. So the easiest thing is to get good at striping with this, and then you can use your guide as to depending on what her foundation choices are. Pardon?
What was the guide called again?
Technically, I don't know. I think it's on the MKOC under product, and then foundation guide. I can't quite remember what it's called. So there's a couple things that you want to ask your questions, or key questions you want to ask your customers. One is, when they go out in the sun with no sunscreen, do they burn? Do they burn and then tan? Or do they just tan? So those are the 3 questions that you're going to want to ask that'll help to give you an idea for their undertone. If you look, our matte wear foundations have a name, whether they're an ivory, beige, or bronze. Then they have a letter, either a C, a W, or an N, and then they have a number after that. So ivory C100 or beige N210. The beige or the ivory, you can often get an idea. And then the C is going to be the key for your undertone. An N is a neutral undertone. C is a pink undertone or cool undertone. And then W is a warm undertone. And so, for example, if there's somebody that typically just burns, they're going to be most likely a C or a cool undertone and pink. If there's somebody that burns then tans, typically is going to be a warm. And then if they're just tan, is going to be the neutral. And you'll notice here on mine, what we've done, where's a good example? Okay, so this one right here, you can see on my labels here, it has the Ivory N140. It has, for those of you that are familiar with the old foundations or our previous matte or luminous foundations, it's gonna have what that is the comparable of. So the Ivory N140 is comparable to the old Ivory 6. So if you have a customer already that you know she was an Ivory 6, this is a good place to start. However, this has a pink sticker on it. And even though it's an N, which is a neutral, and my stickers are color coded, so these ones here, C is pink undertone and has a pink sticker. N is neutral and has a green sticker. And then yellow is a warm undertone and has a yellow sticker. However, what we've found is that some of them, even though it says N for a neutral undertone, may have a bit more of a cooler base, cooler undertone than what we're used to, or what it says. So when I'm looking at somebody for their foundations, or looking at them for their undertone, I will go by my stickers first, even though this says Ivory N, like a neutral. I will go based on the sticker at color as my first instinct when I'm looking at it. So that's why, whether you have something like this that has them all laid out, which I don't remember where it came from, but what I would do is I would keep in a, you know, the mirror bags that our mirrors came in, the mesh bag, that's what I kept them in before.
That's what I put mine, we decided to put mine.
Yeah, so this is an example. These are the old plastic zip bags that we used to have. But so for example, these are all of Pat's cool tones. So all the cool tones are here, all the yellow is here, here's more cool. So just put them in an order.
Don't I have any?
Oh, maybe these, sorry.
Are they your own
These are some neutral, these are neutral. These are yellow and neutral. So, have them in like that. Often what I do is when I'm looking at somebody, if I'm not sure, I will, or if I think they're fairly close to my skin tone, that's the first place that I look at. It's like, she looks like she could be the same color as me, so I'll think, okay, what color am I using? Ivory N140, let's try that first. So, Pat, can you come here? Can you see? Okay, have a seat. Actually, I'm gonna slide you over here. Okay, I've got. Okay. So Pat, when you go outside, without sunscreen, do you burn? Do you burn then tan, or just tan?
I would say I just tan.
Just tan? Okay. So my first thought would be to go with an N, a neutral. And I'm gonna give you a comparison. I'm Ivory. My guess is that you need us to come closer? Okay. You can just stand up and walk forward if you want. So I'm an Ivory. And my guess is that she is not. So beige is probably gonna be where I would start with her. And so you can go back. Okay. We got my beiges over here. And, okay. So we're gonna try 3 in a row. We're going to try 3 different ones. So when you are striping, when you're wondering when you put the foundation on and whether or not, what are you looking for? What are you looking for? You want it to blend in and not see anything. You also, can you turn your chin? You also want to stripe here and here and here. So in this area, because you want to make sure that it blends into her neck area. When somebody looks across the room and sees a person standing there, they don't want to see an obvious line or obvious difference. And sometimes our skin tone on our face is a different color than your neck for various reasons. But if you match your face and not your neck, and your face is quite a bit darker than your neck, which is quite common, then you're definitely gonna have that line across. Even though you've perfectly matched your face for your foundation, it's going to look two-toned when somebody looks at you across the room, and so we don't want that. Ideally, you're going to match your neck shade or your jaw. You're gonna match your foundation to this tone here, so that when somebody looks at you across the room, they're going to see a fluid motion. There's going to be no line stopping or anything like that. Sometimes that means that your client may feel washed out because it's going to be quite a bit lighter than what her actual skin tone is. I do explain that to people, that sometimes, you know, we are matching for here versus here, and you may feel a little washed out depending on, but you know, by the time you add your cheek color and your, you know, if you use powder or bronzer or eyes and all that kind of stuff, most often it balances out and feels good. But if for some reason they do prefer to have a darker color, it's like the whole thing, you know, the client is always right. If they want something darker, then absolutely let them. So we're gonna go, I wish I remembered what color you actually were.
I think it was.
But it's okay. So, can you turn that way? So, and I tried to put them,
Can we position Pat more on a side? There we go, yeah. Just so we can see. And Joni can see too.
okay, so. I place my foundations down on the table in order that I've put them on her face. It does take 10 or 15 seconds for the foundation to oxidize and to be able to blend in. So give it a couple minutes, or give it a few seconds. Can you turn your chin? Can you see? Maybe not up close, but.
We can see the last stripe very well as being very light or very dark.
So we're gonna give that a few seconds. And then what we're gonna do, turn your jaw that way. So this one here. Okay, so this first one here is the beige N150, and then the next one is the beige, or is the beige W, hold on. So this is the N150, then the beige 160, then the beige C170.
Can you come up closer and we can actually see? Pat doesn't mind, and we'll go right up.
Okay.
And
You see okay?
there we go, yes, that's much better.
So then what you want to do is just to kind of blend it in a little bit. Okay, so can you see that? Okay, and Joni, can you see?
Yeah,
Which one?
I think the second one.
The second one? And Mickey, what about you? Can you
I
see?
can't really see it from here. No, we can't see, there's a shadow.
Okay, so turn back around. So the second one is it disappears. So, but what is interesting? Okay, Pat, you can sit
The
down.
third one was light.
Yes. And so the first one, oh, what I didn't mention is the number at the end. So the number at the end goes up, you know, 100, 110, 120, 130, 50, 160, that kind of thing. And so that goes with the level of lightness or darkness. And so essentially the higher the number, the darker the tone, or the more the intensity. The tone will stay the same as in the undertone, but the intensity would deepen. What's interesting is the beige C170, can you turn your chin again, that way? Is the last one we put on, which is the one that you guys said looked the lightest. Even though the other two numbers were less, but because it has a pink undertone, the pinks tend to look brighter and lighter compared to the other undertones. And then these two here are a good example. The beige N150 was the first one we put on, which is technically a neutral tone, but we're finding that it actually has more of a yellow, warmer base to it. And then the beige W160, which is the one that we all agreed to, which blended the best, even though it says a W, which should be warm, we're finding that it actually has more of a neutral base, which is what I thought based on how she answered. She doesn't burn, or she doesn't really burn. So for you, I would suggest that your beige W160 would be your ideal foundation shade. So then you can, if you wanted to use any of our other foundations, you could take this number, you could go to the foundation sheet, and then you could, you know, just go along and see what works best for that. Any questions?
So can I write it down?
Yes, I'll write it down.